Hey, be quiet.
2022, 7:05 p.m. Open a regular meeting, call to order, roll call, please.
Mrs. Crawford. Here. Mr. Moore.
Here.
Mr. Norris.
Yes, here.
Mr. Ritzenthaler.
Here.
Mrs. Wick.
Yes, here. Stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a motion for adoption of the agenda, please?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Ritzenthaler.
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Norris.
Yes.
Mrs. Wick.
Yes. Recognition of NHS graduates, class of 2022.
All right, we're going to start with Mr. Kenya, NHS Principal.
Good evening, Board of Education. Good evening, community members. It's my honor to recognize our speakers at this year's commencement, which is going to take place this Saturday night, weather providing, at Contractor Stadium. So I'll ask Isabel, Lana, and Luke, why don't you guys come on down here? Now, they're going to have their nice long speeches on Saturday night, so this is going to be short and brief. Just going to introduce them individually in the same order. They'll be speaking at graduation, and they're going to say where they're going to school and what they plan to do with their careers, and then we will shake hands here. So first of all, we have Isabel Borgeson. She is our class president.
Hi, I'll be attending the University of Toledo in the fall, and I'll be in their honors program for nursing to get my BSN, and then I hope to further my career into being a pediatric nurse practitioner.
Come back to Fisher Titus, is that what you told me that? Something? We'll see.
Next up, we have our salutatorian, Miss Lana Oglesby.
Hi, my name is Linda Oglesby, and I'm going to Case Western Reserve University to major in electrical engineering, so hopefully I get to go to graduate school and become a nuclear engineer.
And last but not least, this year, class of 2022 valedictorian, Mr. Luke Brown.
I am going to attend Ohio University's Honors Tutorial College to major in translational health and exercise physiology with the goal to eventually become a doctor or orthodontist.
Thank you very much. Everybody will get to hear from them definitely more on Saturday in that same order, and we wish them the best in the future. We'll get a picture here.
Thank you. Yeah. What kind of trap back here? Like,
You got this.
We'll get a
yeah,
first
just
round
here.
handshake.
We'll buy time. We'll start with Kareem there.
Recognition of Teacher of the Year.
NTA President, Mr. Brown.
Sounds so weird. Okay. Hi, I'm Mr. Brown. Some of you know me from art class, but I'm also part of NTA. I'm the NTA president. There's two things. We have two awards every year. One's for the Friend of Education, somebody in the community that's helped out. We had two nominations, and one was for Hans Hoffman because of the situation for him, and he has passed away. And for the family, we just wanted to celebrate him, but they want a quiet ceremony, so I'm not going to really talk too much more about that. The second one is for Teacher of the Year, and that is Sue Bright. So Sue Bright, come on up. Well, she kind kind of found out that she was Teacher of the Year, and we were such a nice place. We have gifts for you, but we just don't have them right now. She found out that she was going to be nominated. Well, she was going to get it, and she got mad at me. And I told her she felt like she didn't deserve it, and that how humble that is for somebody who's worked so hard and for so long and made it through the last couple years with everything that's going on. There were 11 nominations that we got, which is a lot for us, and 6 of them went to her. So it wasn't just one person, it was many people that know her, and she said she didn't pay them off, so people love you. So that's why you're the Teacher of the Year. Congratulations.
Recognition of retirees.
While on the Sue Bright topic, we'll have Mr. Moore, principal at Maplehurst Elementary.
37 years. Sue. My first recognition of Mrs. Bright was from a top drawer of a filing cabinet. I've told her this story many years ago. As I walked in as my first year teaching, and I opened up the file cabinet, the top one. I can't remember the first 2 ladies' names, but Mrs. Bright was right behind at the back, because at Lee, it had 2 5th grade classes, and their enrollment was always changing. So every other year there was a different person, and somebody new came in and somebody new went on. My second recognition of Mrs. Bright was when I taught 5th grade at Pleasant Elementary, and she taught 1st grade. At the end of each year, especially the first year I was there, Sue would make her way down like the last week of school. And she and Susan Carlisle, who's another 1st grade teacher whom I recall very well, would always come down, and back then it was a K-5 building, so the 5th grade went on to the middle school, and they were gone. You wouldn't see them. And both of them came down, and they made it a point to see their kids again. So they'd come in. This happened for a couple of years. And then after that, one of the years, I finally came to Sue and said, you know what, this last week we had 4 days. You want to come down and teach my class? And I'll go teach 1st grade. It was a good flip-flop. That way I'd get to know some of the younger kids, and she got a chance to say goodbye, and a heartfelt goodbye to some of her kids as they went on. Some of the most fondest memories that I have of Mrs. Bright was how, and those that are here supporting her would recognize how spontaneously she would come up with a song or a jingle. Whenever we had Right to Read Week, she would always be the one who would come back and make a jingle. In fact, in this very room, a year ago, when we had Leader in Me training in here for a few days, she was in that back corner and stood up and said, after a short while, just boom, burst into song, and kids would respond to that. And adults did as well. We all did. The kids would love to sing her songs. She would sing it to them, and they would remember it, and ultimately they would learn it. So Mrs. Bright, 37 years. You've sang to them, you've loved them, you've taught them, and most importantly, they've learned. So from those assembled here and those whom you've taught, we all say thank you, Mrs. Bright. We have this certificate. The board wishes to shake your hands. And our staff that's assembled here, if you guys could assemble maybe along the wall there and wish her well, and we have some flowers for you as you depart. And then her last day will be the 31st, so that'll be Sue Bright Day at Maplehurst Elementary.
I thought that was yesterday.
Nope.
Yeah.
It's a week. Congratulations.
Congratulations, she coming up. And a Norwalk trucker grad too.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Sue, do we get a jingle then or not? Okay.
I thought about making up one and to say goodbye and screw off.
We'll believe the stories.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, sure.
So in true Connie fashion, she's cracking me up right now back here. Why do we have to do this the same night? She's all.
That's what I said.
So, Connie is going to be obviously greatly missed at League Elementary. Connie Cluting is our secretary who is retiring from League. Mr. Moore was a head. Mrs. Cluting as a secretary. Mr. Ream did as well. You know, I definitely had to keep this short and sweet because I kind of had to twist her arm to even come tonight. So not really into the hoopla. Connie's intelligent, diligent, detail. She's very dependable, has an old school work ethic. She is always early to work. I mean, every single day she is early to work, often stays late. As far as the daily run of the building, teachers can tell you, I will tell you that she's probably the most important person to the daily run of that building. So it's great that her attendance is also amazing. Unless she decides to put her foot through a mirror, but that's a story for a different time. So she's truly a team player, takes initiative with tasks without being asked, and just really makes our building run. So she will be greatly missed by all of the staff and very difficult to replace. So congratulations on your retirement, Connie Cluting.
Being that she's our secretary and not just like another one of us, we've had the last 7 weeks of Connie. So we've been, doing our own special recognition at school.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Get down there in the line.
We'll do it right here. When she's done there. She's got Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tim Shield is here to recognize Luann Pugh.
So I'm here on behalf of the entire support services staff. For those of you that know Luann, she's been with us for 14 years. She's been a bus aide, she's been a cook's helper. So she's a very dedicated employee to the district. She's one of the first employees that the students get to see in the morning as they get on the bus, you know, being there as the bus aide. Throughout that, she's also one of the last that the students get to see before they go home. So she's there, it seems like, for the whole period as she gets to serve them lunch as well. Luann's traveled many miles for the district in her time here as an aide for several different local routes. She's also been the aide for the special needs route that we had that went to Grafton. So, you know, no matter what the weather conditions were, Luann was there. She was one that you could count on, very dedicated. She just showed up and did her job every day. You could count on that. So Luann chose not to show up tonight. She didn't really get into detail on for what her reasons were. So on behalf of the sports services staff, you know, we thank Luann for all her time. She's greatly appreciated, and she'll be dearly missed.
Public participation. Each person who wishes to address the board will be asked to give his or her name and address. Remarks should be limited to 3 minutes in length. If after everyone who wishes to do so has had the opportunity to speak, additional comments can be made up to a total allotted time of 30 minutes. Do we have anyone?
Hi, my name is Tina Jameson. My daughter Kira Jameson is going into the 9th grade at Norwalk High School. She has attended all 9 years at Norwalk, and just recently in the past year and a half, about a year and 2 months, she's been with the North Point classroom out of Norwalk High School. A lot of these teachers I recognize that have spent time with Kira over the years. Over the years, I've been a huge supporter of Norwalk schools and of the Norwalk music system. Kira's always been a huge fan of music, been really pushing. I've always been a fan supporter. She is, in fact, in the past 2.5 years, we have actually moved out of the district. And I've opened a goal because Norwalk's always really fought for my daughter and really pushed. And the school districts we were in, everybody told me that it was going to be a better school district for her. And I chose not to oblige by that because I thought Norwalk really did great, or kind of hooked anyway. Kira came to me at the beginning of the year really wanting and excited that she was going to be part of the choir this year. And I was super excited because she always sings. She even sings to me in the shower. I can hear her through the shower. So, and she knows the songs. She's great with singing. So then, didn't say anything about a concert. I went to the calendar, looked at the calendar. I'm like, oh, Kira's got a concert in December. And she says, oh, okay, I'll look into it. She looked into it. She proceeds to tell me that the teacher informed her that the kids of North Point classroom are not allowed to participate in the concert. They go through all of the concert practices, everything with them. I then went to her IEP meeting. We went to 2 meetings. I called everybody in the branches to talk to them about this. And everybody seemed shocked. They had no idea that this happened. Though the kids go to practice every day, but didn't find it unusual that they don't go to the concert. And then come to find out after everybody swore, principal swore to me teachers swore to me, everybody swore that this would never happen again, this is not how Norwalk works. Then it happens again in the springtime, exact same teacher, exact same situation. Ms. Mason promised me this was not gonna happen and swore that she apologized to Karen, this is not how Norwalk works. I hate to say that I think Norwalk works this way, and I really hope that I'm wrong. They swore that this was a one-time deal, and the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm really disappointed in it. I even got almost a word-for-word apology in an email from the principal saying that Ms. Mason, Mr. Swartz, is the principal that sent me a word-for-word email almost exactly apologizing for the teacher's behavior, said it would never happen again. Continues to happen. I really am disappointed because I know several faces up there, and I know that you have children. If this was your child and your child was a special needs child, and that teacher called her out in class, looked at her in front of all of her peers that are in the general education system, and told her that she did not have a t-shirt or a spot in the bleachers because she was not part of the concert. You would be heartbroken, as I was, and so was my daughter. She came home in tears again. I have overlooked many times of things that have happened in the school district from the Main Street School where they put them in the basement. The North Point students are in the basement, in the end of the hall, in a dark hallway where they are not seen, not heard. That is 1952. That is what happens in 1952. They put them in the back of the choir to practice. They are not seen, they are not heard back there. This is not Rosa Parks in 1952. You don't put them in the back of the room. You don't put them in the basement. You don't put them in the hallway. I am certainly hoping that talking to the school board, because I've hit every branch, all the way up to the superintendent, and I'm hoping, talking to the school board, that we can make some kind of changes in this, because this is not how Norwalk, and how I have defended Norwalk City Schools for this whole time, saying that this is not how Norwalk works. They have every right, and if we're setting this bar and teaching the teachers to teach the kids how this works, and setting this bar right here, then how are we expecting the children to teach them an inclusion? I have worked with kids with special needs and adults with special needs for over 20 years, and we work so hard to include these students and these children into including into the community where they blend into the normal environment, and that's wrong. They shouldn't have to always adjust to the normal environment. We should give a little too and accept them. And it should be able to look into a choir and say, that's just a choir. It's not the special needs over here and the adults over here and the kids over here. We should be all on the equal. And I'm really hoping that me talking today will hope that the school board will work with me to do an ethics class, an ethics presentation to the teachers during the school board meetings, or the teacher conferences. And I've actually got a phone number that I'm willing to give you guys of someone that will do an ethics class during the in-service meetings. And I'm hoping that will make a difference. And I do plan on going to more concerts because I do know the North Point kids that are involved in this. So I want to see inclusion because this is flat out discrimination. And it's
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Okay.
We'll definitely look into and have further discussion on it.
My daughter is special needs. She has never been invited to a concert.
What's your name?
My name is Karen Newman. I had no idea that they were having any choir concerts, and she goes to choir also. Nobody ever notified me that they did tell me about a dance, but they never said anything about a choir.
Thank you. Thank you both. Treasurer's reports.
Okay. First, we have the minutes on the April 12th regular session meeting. Then we have 22 financial reports. We're gonna roll that right into the 5-year forecast, which is the May update. So we'll go ahead and do the forecast now. Which, if you need one, there are copies down here. You need to pick up both the forecast, which looks like this, and the notes that go along with it. And a big printout, a bigger one, since it's kind of small and hard to read all the numbers, so you have that one. So you remember, every May and November, we update our 5-year forecast. There's a couple really important points. This is general fund only. We don't have any federal title grants, no federal special education, no cafeteria, no permanent improvement money, student activities, athletics. This is just general fund dollars, our 001 operating money. We have a lot of expenses that come out of those other funds, both staff and supplies. But when those funds are expended, that expense comes back to the general fund because that's the one fund that can pay for everything. Especially important in this update are the ESSER funds that are in the forecast. We've spent over $2 million combined from our coronavirus fund and the ESSER 1 and 2 funds in the fiscal 21 and 22. This, of course, is fiscal 22. We still have over $700,000 of ESSER 2 funds remaining and $5.2 million of ESSER 3 funds remaining. We have 2 years yet to spend those funds. Normally, federal funds can't be used to supplant our general fund expenses, but the ESSER funds are different. We can supplant or offset our general fund expenses. So this is what we've been doing since we've been deficit spending. The second important change to the forecast is the adoption of the Fair School Funding Plan by the state, which was in this year's budget, so it was for this year and next year. This directly funds students by the state where they're actually attending school. So it eliminates the deduction method that was in place prior for open enrollment, charter schools, voucher schools, private schools. This is a really good thing because it means that we're no longer losing locally raised tax dollars. But it does mean that there's $1 million of open enrollment revenue that's no longer in the revenue section when you compare your line items. On the expenditure side, there's no longer an expense of over $1.5 million for open enrollment. We do have more students that leave the district on open enrollment than come in, so it was a financial drain to the district. Charter schools were also an expense that was close to $800,000. So you can see how this really changes how the forecast looks. So keeping all that in mind, let's get started. The forecast is set up a lot like your basic income statement. Revenues are at top, expenses are below that, and then the difference is at the bottom, line 6.01. We don't call it a profit and loss since we're talking about students, but that's basically what it is. Instead, we call it excess of revenues and other financing sources over under expenditures or other financing uses. But you can take P&L statement. So starting out with our revenues, the general property tax. We've had some really good news on our property tax. Our valuation has finally reached the point that we're at the 20 mil floor. This means we will see increases in our tax revenue instead of millage being rolled back. There's still quite a bit of new construction out there that's not on the tax rolls yet. If construction's not complete by January 1st, it goes on to the next year. Some of the bigger projects in town were not ready by January 1st, so they'll be on for next year. And just a reminder, the last time we had any new additional money from a property tax levy was from 2015. Next line item is a tangible personal property tax. This is a public utility tax. We've been seeing small increases in this area. It's basically made up of electric substations, gas transmission lines, cell towers. It's taxed at a different rate than the regular property tax. We don't have any major projects in our district, like a pipeline or a windmill or a solar project, so we don't see major dollars coming in there. School district income tax is next. This is a tax that tends to bounce around because it follows employment. Compared to the amount that we receive in property tax and our state funding, it's not as impactful to the district, but it is still very important. With the changes in the tax filing deadlines, it is skewed to numbers, but we did end up at a positive for the year. I was a little worried our second payment came in lower than the previous year, but in the end it was made up. I do have small increases forecast in the future, but this can easily change, so that's why it's not quite as much of an increase as we had this year. Our next line is called the unrestricted state grants and aid and restricted state grants and aid. This is our state foundation funding. It's the largest category of revenue. So I was really excited when the state implemented the Fair School Funding Plan in the budget, but unfortunately they did not fully fund it. So this makes it really just a number. It's not a real funding methodology based upon inputs like the Fair School Funding Plan is. And the state had plenty of money to fund it. That was the reason legislatures gave at the time, that it was too expensive to fully fund. So the May 6th Focus Education, which is an update that we received with Education News, talked about at the state level, April revenues exceed estimates by over $1 billion. The state is running nearly $2.5 billion over estimates from the year. And they go on to talk about the different taxes and how much more money they're bringing in. And it says all other major sources of general revenue fund dollars were also over estimates. So far, through the 10 months of 22, the state has collected a total of nearly $22.9 billion over the estimated revenue. Compared to this time in 21, the state has collected nearly $2.1 billion more than was collected through April of 2021. So the state does have plenty of money to fund. Had they fully funded it for this year, we would have seen $2 million more than what we did for our state funding. So it really made a big difference. It would have erased the deficits that were shown. Unfortunately, they did not. The other change with our state funding is it's more restricted. We now have to report to the state every year how we spend our funds for gifted, career tech, English language learners, student wellness, and economic disadvantage. They do have this funding forecasted as flat after next year. We're looking at a small increase next year, and then after that, I funded it flat because we need a new state budget. There's two other revenue streams in this line item, the casino tax and the catastrophic cost reimbursement. Casino tax is nice because we directly receive it from the state. This doesn't happen with the regular lottery profits. Lottery profits go to the state and then they send it back to us as state foundation funding. So it just gets mixed into the general fund and then sent back. A bit of a shell game. Casino money, on the other hand, because of the way it was written into law when it was passed, it comes directly to the state. The state's not able to reduce their funding to send it to us. It is only around $144,000 a year. The other one, the catastrophic cost reimbursement, this was changed also in this year's budget bill. It used to be a state appropriation. All districts could apply for it, and then we received a percentage based on how much was appropriated at the state level and what each district applied for. They just prorated it out. Now, the state is taking 10% of every district's special education funding and using that as the pot of money to pay out from. So they take away 10%, which for us is $143,762 from our funding, and then we have to request it back. We request it by documenting our students' special education expenses for category 2 to 5 that are above $27,375 and category 6 that are above $32,850. So it's any expense over that amount we're allowed to ask for reimbursement. This year, we have $292,000 in expenses that we ask for reimbursement. I don't know if that'll be fully reimbursed at the amount because of the change in the way they're doing it. We don't know yet. Hopefully before the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, we'll have that number. Next line item is the property tax allocation. This is the rollback and the homestead on property tax. A win-win for schools and taxpayers. Taxpayers have their property taxes reduced and the state reimburses districts for this amount. If you're 65 or disabled, please make sure you check with the county auditor to have the homestead deduction. It's really important and it's one of the few win-wins. Next line is our all other revenue. Basically, this is everything that doesn't fit in the other categories. Building rentals, student fees, interest income, donations to the district. The larger items in here are the Medicaid reimbursement. We're in the Ohio Medicaid for Schools program where the services that we provide to students, we are able to build state back from. There's also tuition and excess costs that we receive from other districts for educating their students. Over $1 million of open enrollment revenue used to be in this line, but with the direct funding, it has now been moved up to the regular state foundation funding line, which you'll remember is called the unrestricted state grants and aid and restricted state grants and aid. The next section under the revenue, these are unusual items, nothing that we ever expect, so we can't forecast any of them. In fiscal 21, we received a lot of refunded premiums from our workman's compensation program. You remember it was called the billion back and the 5 billion back, and we received almost $350,000 in this. We also can have a SERS refund depending on how our foundation deduction works. In 21 and 22, we did have an advance out and then an advance back in, $275,952. Those were grants, federal grants that were negative at year end. And we advanced from the general fund to cover it and then the general fund back in the following year. We don't really like doing that. We do have authority in the revised code that we can have our funds end in the negative, but it messes up our appropriations, which I don't like that either. So last year I did do it, but it just skews the forecast and I don't really like the way it works. So we're not going to be doing that one anymore. So that finishes off our revenues for the year. You'll notice we're under $1 million from previous years. That's the change with the open enrollment no longer being in there. Next are expenditures. First line, of course, is personal services. This is a salary for all of our general fund school district employees. Of course, the biggest expense in a school district is salaries because teachers, you can't have a school without teachers. So, or staff, or cafeteria, or bus drivers, or, all of that. So, of course, it's the most important thing that we have. Food service employees are paid out of a different fund, so our federal and state grants, so those aren't shown in there. We also have employees that are contracted from the ESC and the health department, they'll show in a different, that's in the purchase service. A few other things are in the salary line. Payment for employees that don't take the district insurance, severance for employees that are retiring, salaries for our coaches and our student activity advisors. So this is where we want to remember those ESSER funds I mentioned in the beginning. We're paying for 6 elementary teachers from the ESSER fund. We're also paying for grant-funded teachers when that money runs out. We're paying for an additional school nurse that helped during our COVID surge. Our summer cleaning last year and hopefully again this year to deep clean our buildings. We paid for additional compass teachers and aides last year. We paid for 8 long-term sub-teachers this year. We paid for study table salaries. All those expenses would be coming out of our general fund salary account if we weren't offsetting it with the ESSER funds. So that's a lot of money that's being pushed off to the ESSER fund. So we want to remember that when we look at the bottom line. The next line is employee benefits. These are the pension costs, the medical, dental, vision, life insurance, any tuition reimbursement, Medicare, workman's compensation. Our medical insurance for this year did not increase for the year which is finishing up. For next year, it's going up by 5%. Dental and vision are not changing, but the medical insurance is one of our largest expenses. We pay over $3.6 million a year in medical premiums. No, that's okay, because if we have questions, we're good.
On this STRS, I'm thinking in the back of my mind that when this new thing came out with the COLA for this year and that, they're going to reduce that from 14 to 13.
No.
They're not going to do it in that form?
No, they're not reducing it for us. So STRS and SERS are paid half by the employer and half by the employee. STRS,
Okay.
the employee pays 14% and the district pays 14%. They were talking about reducing it for the employee,
For the employee,
not the
okay.
employer. They actually have a bill out there right now to increase the employer portions up to 18% for both. That.
So they're going down on one and up on the other.
Well, I don't know that the 13 is that's still in discussion.
I think that passed, I think. I'm not sure, but I think that.
It
did not. But the COLA.
Neither did the 18, the COLA, right, there was a change to the COLA. Mhm. And which is actually paid out by STRS directly, not by the district. STRS being the teacher's retirement, or SCRS is our school employees retirement. School employees are different because the employee only pays 10%. The employer, the board is paying 14% towards it, but the employee is only paying 10%. Good question. And really, if we have questions as we go, it's
Well, we're getting there.
good. This is our purchase service line. This is where the other big change was. This used to include our open enrollment out that we had to pay out, our community school deductions, and our vouchers. So last year, that was over $2.3 million. Still included in here are excess costs for students that need extra services. This would be students that attend places like Willow Creek, or the detention center, students that attend MH units run by the county, post-secondary enrollment, which is our College Prep Plus program. Also included in this line are utilities, the gas, water, electric, trash removal, building repairs, bus repairs, internet, questions about mileage. Just to give you an idea there, the electric, just at the high school alone for 1 month is over $24,000. So think about that when you get your electric bill. Our next line is supplies and materials. This is textbooks, workbooks, software, license, library book, custodial supply, bus fuel, testing materials, nurse supplies. And quite a bit of this we've been pushed off to the ESSER fund also. We've been trying to use a lot of our ESSER money to buy instructional supplies, to do remote online learning for students and different things. So we've used a lot of ESSER funds to bring this line item down. And we're looking at doing our next textbook adoption from the ESSER funds. Textbook adoptions are usually $300,000 to $400,000. So we'd like to push that up. Capital outlay is next. This is a general fund bus purchases and all of our general fund equipment purchases. You'll recall that we got a state grant to buy 3 school buses this year, but the state only put up $45,000 towards the school buses, and school buses cost almost $100,000. So the difference is coming out of the general fund. We have to take it out of the general fund instead of our permanent improvement, because the language of our permanent improvement does not allow us to buy school buses. It only talks about improving buildings. So that's why it goes to the general fund. Other objects, this category is mostly comprised of our county auditor, county treasurer fees for the collection of property taxes, and the state of Ohio fees for the collection of the income taxes. It's set in law with the county auditor to charge and what the state of Ohio charges us for those. Also in this line are liability insurance and the district's annual audit. Operating transfers out. We no longer anticipate transfers out as our food service is running in the positive. We have been doing this for years, $60,000 annual transfer out of the general fund to support the food service. But it's looking like we're not going to have to do that again. So that is really important. And then finally, we have our last line, the revenue over or under expenditures. Or you want to do the whole thing, the excess of revenues and other financing sources over under expenditures and other financing sources. This is the bottom line. This is whether you're whether you have more money or you're losing money. And as you can see, it's in red. That's because we're losing money. We have been losing money since 2020 was the first year. As I said, 2015 is when we passed our levy. That was when our revenues went up and our expenditures went down. We were able to bring in more money over those years. We basically put that in our savings account, and that's what we're living off now, as we're spending our savings as our expenditures have increased. And this is normal for a school district. This is the way it goes. Your expenditures are always increasing. Pass a levy, you hold on to that money to cover you then when your funds are no longer exceeding your expenses. The ESSER funds have allowed us to push off when we may have to look at our next levy, because we do still have $2.3 million that we've offset. A lot of that was discretionary spending. Without the ESSER funds, we might not have done the long-term stuff But without the long-term subs, we'd have more regular sub costs. So there is a trade-off to this. But this is something to look at going further, how much we want to try to offset this deficit, what we want to do with the $5.2 million of remaining ESSER 3 funds. So any questions about the forecast? Any discussion?
How many years do we have for that stuff into?
Well, obligation can go through September of 2024. So it has to be obligated, so that means you have to have something in place, a way of spending it. And then they're not only schools, but everybody has so much ESSER money, federal funds right now, that they don't want to spend in a hurry, that they've been asking for extensions from the federal government. So they didn't extend the obligation period, it still ends September 2024. But normally we had to have everything liquidated by then, but they've pushed that off. So we have another 4 months after that to liquidate it. So basically we have until September 2024 to spend, and then a little bit longer. So we are kind of coming in on, I know 2024 sounds like far away, but it'll be here before you know it. So.
Big number too.
Right, it is a lot of money. We do have, I had emailed you about the Energy Optimizers project. It's not on the board agenda because with the OFCC project, we've discovered that we have to push it out a little bit timeline-wise, because we have to be farther with the OFCC to be able to get credit for that. But there is a recommendation by them for almost $1.3 million of HVAC upgrades for the high school that need to be done. But we have to wait to make sure it's in the OFCC plan so that we get credit for it. So of the 5.3, we do have thoughts of how we want to spend 1.3. And of course, of that, 20% has to directly offset learning costs. So that's, $1 million. But there's, plans, literacy, things that we need to address.
So we have so many salaries coming out right now.
We do, we have quite a few.
Is there any benefit of doing more, almost the same way that you were talking about how we're kind of putting that extra money into a savings that we're getting? Is there any benefit of doing that so that we can take that very large red number in 2026 down?
Well, the red number in 2026 won't actually go down because that's going to be, it will because that's so far away. We can build up our cash balance by not deficit spending. The thing is we want to be careful by showing we have a structural deficit. We're spending more than we're taking in. We don't want to go too far with offsetting it, making it look like we're not spending more than we're taking in, and then we say, oh, look, we have all this money. So there's that. It would be much worse if we weren't offsetting all of the salaries that we're doing right now. Right. So, but and part of it is the plan. What we have going forward, and I know Brad has some ideas with the literacy, adding some literacy coaches and different things like that. So
I get worried about adding. I want to add a lot of people, but I don't want to cut them in 2 years either. I don't want to give false expectations of how many salary people we talk about bringing in. That's great. But if when this money runs out, they don't have jobs and we don't have that special help with our kids. And then all of a sudden we need to pass a levy and they're like, well, you used to have all this help for my kid and now you don't. I think that we need to be very clear about that, how we're spending that and there may be a time limit on that.
And specific to the literacy, we are getting our teacher, Morton Gilliam's OG trained. So the ideal of the additional ones, whether it be para aides that are supporting, that they will not need to be there in 2 years. That will not exist. We are headhunting because I'm very much in favor of identifying our quality people that we know that are good in this, that are reading experts, that they're going to be the ones running points in both Maplehurst and Pleasant. So we are looking to reassign that, but we're having to have the support, and we're looking at different options for that, knowing that we might not need that in 2 years. It's not because we're taking away service from kids. It's the structure itself of our reading program, which has been a major deficit in our district for many, many years. And there's dyslexia legislation that's come out, reading that like those two things, they're not one and the same, but they go hand in hand, and it needs to be addressed. So you look at the volume of non-readers coming out that are being promoted through at the early age, you're seeing that what that does across our district. So we have the ability to do it now, knowing that we're not doing like brand new hires. So some of our discussion earlier that it's going to be too new in place of, we're basically headhunting our own to serve in that capacity, and then we're supporting kids because clearly they're kind of using their expertise instead of just my classroom. It now is addressing the school needs. So.
And that is always a concern when we receive these grants or with our federal grants that, you know, they're only there for a short time, and when you start hiring people and bringing in programs, you have to be able to pay for it when the money's gone.
Right.
So, and it's probably another reason why I've been cautious about, although we're all setting a lot of our deficit, about going too far with it, because, you know, sometimes it's easier to buy things, the supplies, we did Chromebooks, gosh, we did $200,000 worth of new Chromebooks, than to add, but a lot of times you just need people, having the additional aides who work with kids and, teachers.
Would there be a benefit of having a financial planning meeting with the board to look at this money and how much time we have left and hear Brad and hear everybody what we should be doing and what's best for our district long term? Like a financial planning meeting?
When we get down to the board discussion, I'm going to bring up about setting up some board sessions, workshops, whatever we want to call it. So we're going to have additional meetings that we're going to meet to go over, especially with our new policies from Couple Wagner and that, and to discuss and have a plan. We need to sit down and have some plans.
Definitely don't want to lose it, but definitely, like when Brad explains it to me, I understand now. I hope you see my worry of, I don't want to bring people on and have all these great things and then lose them all as soon as that ends. I think it would be better to not just sit and get the whole picture and make actual plans that can help the district and the students as much as possible without it having to come to an end roughly when that money runs out.
Right. And that's kind of part of like doing an HVAC project here at the high school. That's something that, the building's over 20 years old now, that we're going to have to do sooner or later. Right. Well, if we do it with our ESSER funds, then that saves our general fund and our permanent improvement fund, but it doesn't add the cost that we can't support later.
Right.
Plus, we'll have energy savings.
I was going to say, plus you see the savings. You're investing in savings for the future.
Right. Any more for we only get to do this twice a year, though. Okay, so next, we're looking as part of the ESSER money to waive all of our K-12 school fees and the student activity and athletic participation fees. Our boosters have agreed to donate again towards the participation fees. And we have a maintenance truck purchase.
We have our president up here too of Athletic Boosters. So there's our thank you to continuing that, because that's great for our kids in our district.
Would you like to speak?
Oh, no. I mean, I'm not a little something.
Look at it. Pretty big.
So we've committed another $30,000 to supporting all of the student athletic fees from middle school through high school. And our long-term intention would be to continue this as long as we have the support of all of our board members and other income and revenue sources. But at this point, we would like to pay the fees and donate $30,000 again this year.
Amazing. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Also, a much smaller version of this I'll drop off at the board on Thursday.
Perfect. Thank you.
I wanted the shorter one.
Oh, here, wait,
Don't do that to me.
Thank you. All right. That right there.
That's probably
Thank you.
And I know we had discussed this, that's like a third of what the actual fees are.
Yes, our actual, and it's not just athletics,
Right,
it's student
right,
activity,
yeah.
so, it runs around $60,000 to $70,000. So we definitely appreciate that, thank you. Mhm. Maintenance truck purchase, we did get 3 truck quotes. Our older maintenance truck is, I think like the floor is falling through on it, so we're looking at getting this, we did, I believe it was Fireman's Chevy was the low bid on this, but it's looking like it may be 6 months or so before the truck comes in, so. And then the next one is the Juneteenth holiday revised code 3319.087 changed that to add that as a holiday for 11 and 12 month non-teaching employees. We will look at, we're in negotiations right now with OT, so we'll look at taking care of that later. But this, of course, this Juneteenth comes before July 1st when the new negotiations would be in effect. So that's why that's on approval so that we are in compliance with state law. Disposals, this is the auxiliary disposal from Norwalk Catholic Schools. Norwalk Catholic Schools, of course, receive state funding directly through us to them. So whenever they dispose of something, it requires our school board to approve it. And then we have a Family Medical Leave Act for an employee. Then the donation from the athletic boosters of $30,000, and we thank you for that. And that is all I have for you this month.
Okay. We get a motion for approval for the treasurer's reports, items 1 through 9.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
Yeah, this holiday, is that paid at their daily rate? That they're gonna, for the June,
Yeah, well, they just get the day off.
oh, so it's not any extra money?
No,
that they
no,
get?
no, yeah. No,
Okay.
they just get the day off. Yeah. Right,
I mean, that they off the pay them, right?
right,
Okay.
right, yes. At their regular rate.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Any other? Roll call?
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford? Yes. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzenbauer?
Yes.
Mrs. White?
Yes. Personnel?
Yes, we are in the hiring season now. All the individuals I'm going to mention here, we are having to replace. The first one, Ryan Myrical, he served as counselor at Lee and Main Street. Unbelievable, very strong. Any individual, Mr. Brown out here knows, top shelf. He is just great. His family's calling him, and he's headed to Big Walnut, so down just north of Columbus, so Big Walnut High School. So it'll be from intermediate to Big Walnut High, just outside of Delaware. Luann Pugh is recognized tonight. She will be retiring. Jaleesa Reyes is our ELL aide. She is actually going back to continue, hopefully finish her undergraduate studies, and she potentially would have interest once that is completed to return as a employee of ours. Julie Riley, a great intervention specialist at Main Street School. She actually was hired by North Point ESC and will be working in Norwalk as they do various services with our North Point classes. So they're doing territorial divide now. So she would be basically this side of the bay, and then there was another person that was hired to replace Karen Ruff at North Point that will be the other side of the bridge. So that's how North Point's doing their divide. So essentially, we will still see Julie Riley in action in some of our buildings. Number 2, we have substitutes as listed there, both certified and classified. Continuation to the EPAC listing there. Those are our subs. Morgan Savage is our primary point person who operates Performing Arts Center, Fisher Titus, and the Art Gallery. That's would be the individuals that would cover in her place if indeed there's an absence. You'll recognize Molly Weatherall, my friend and neighbor, is not listed. She is officially retired at this point. So no Molly Weatherall listed on agendas going forward. Number 3, we have extended school year for several individuals there. Ann Day, Sarah Fury, Allison Sellers, high school teacher. She is working with some end of course individuals with tutoring. The next group, and I see we have Mr. Brown that stayed here. He is listed there in the point spot, our valedictorian. We actually, that is a change. We had that at 1250, and we have OPSI leadership here. We are working on that currently, but that was raised to 1375 because we have that ability to do that outside of the contract. These are individuals that will be working in the summertime to make sure Norwalk City Schools campuses get cleaned and maintained as they need to be before kids return in the August month. Supplemental contracts as listed there, those are actually Norwalk City School District employees. So the range from high school through middle school and Main Street. There's a combination of both athletics as well as organizations and clubs that are part of the school day itself. Special contracts, so other individuals that are coaches and or organization leaders, those are individuals that are not current employees, typically referred to as lay coaches, coming from the outside. That's the individuals listed there. We have the whole listing from high school through middle school as well. Number 8, we have a stipend for Rhonda Rafe Snyder as a yearbook advisor. And then number 9, we are moving to the volunteers, individuals that have, as you can see, Dave Renberg, a few individuals have helped the program, a few individuals that are new as well. So it's unbelievable that we have that listing of people that are donating their time, and there's nobody better listed than that first point person, Dave Renberg, that has put so much into our district and so much in the tennis program. So I can say high praise for all that entire list, but Dave Renberg definitely deserves a few stars by his name because he's just unbelievable individual. So that completes my personnel items.
Okay. Motion for approval for personnel items 1 through 9.
So,
Thank you. Second. Any discussion?
yeah, I have a question. On some of these that we're hiring from the outside, are all of the positions posted inside before we offer it to somebody from the outside?
Yes. Yep. So we did not have a viable, any interest on the inside of individuals, and that's why it's going outside of our school district.
Okay.
Yep. So that would be seen by all individuals.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Roll call?
Mr. Ritzenfeller?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford? Yes. Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mrs. Witt?
Yes. Superintendent's reports.
Yes, as you know, the camps that are overnight experiences have to be approved by the board. That is why the 3 individual sports are listed there. Girls and Coach Manlett, he is looking to take his girls team to Central Michigan for a camp running through those dates, June 16, June 18. And then we have both our boys basketball and our football teams that are traveling to the Eastern Ohio camp. That's in Sheriffville, Ohio, close to New Philadelphia. If you've been in that area, it's kind of out by itself. There's not much there other than basketball courts and fields. So what else are you going to do but play sports? So that's actually, for those that you know, Bobby Huggins, that's his younger brother who operates that. Larry Huggins, so Bob Huggins, coach at West Virginia now, a long time in Cincinnati. His younger brother runs that. So both our basketball and our football teams have selected to go there because it's shown that they have good competition. That's more of a playing team format rather than individual-based camp that they're looking to do overnight experiences with. Number 2, nursing service agreement with Huron County Public Health. That was in your packet. Number 3, typically Mr. Kish likes to be here and speak to the trip that he will be looking to have the next school year from April 12th to April 15th, looking to take his band students to Washington, D.C. to experience the D.C., the many different monuments and experiences there, as well as seeing some professional shows. So some of our individuals have not traveled even to go, and so if you've not been to Washington, D.C., obviously it's an important trip to go on, and obviously some kids, that's their best experience is do it through a school trip. They're not always have the ability to do it on their own. So it is fairly expensive, $800 to $1,000 probably per individual, but similar to athletic boosters, we have a music boosters that is operating at a high level that are bringing money and funds in. So hopefully individual, the final the individual has to pay will not be significantly deny him or her from having that participation.
I actually did email him since he gave us that opportunity, and I would love to come up with ideas to lower that, because like you said, I told them, a lot of students, this is their opportunity, and even though they're letting parents do payment plans, which I absolutely love, I would hate to see a lot of kids excluded from that, because that's still a pretty high dollar, so I'm really hoping that, fundraising or whatever's available, I'd love to see that number come down.
Right. And I would say in my time as high school principal, there has been 0 kids that have been shut out because of that. And I say from the community, from the boosters, when you say Mr. Kish talks to somebody, kids are having that covered. So we can say ultimately we want people to have, some skin in the game and pay a part, because you hate to say everything's free all the time, but the bottom line is we will have check writers that make that happen. So there will not be any kids that will stay home because financial reasons. The next part I will go together. Mr. Norris served on this with our athletic council, looking at athletic handbook and trucker talk. I know this was a story covered by our local paper. The one change is we're looking at separating the vape and the tobacco piece separate from drugs and alcohol. So that column is a separate column. We're looking to do, you can say on the first offense, we're looking to do an education piece. So it's not just, here's the consequence you have to serve, and essentially we still have the 3 strikes you're out. So within a high school career, if you have some of those acts and those levels, you have 3 times. After that, you are done. Nobody likes putting kids in that position, because most of us know what they do for our kids. It's better for our kids to be in a positive environment with that, but the bottom line is, as you've covered in your paper, this is a major issue at Norwalk and every other school, is the volume of vaping that's happening with our kids. And it's tough to address that outside of what can we do? Education is a component we've added there. So that's the major change with that. 6 came in, we have a student who is attending that's Learn Well. That is one of our students. We are responsible for that pay. So that was a new add since the agenda itself was posted. And finally, our agreement, which is pretty annual, you've seen this in the past, our arrangements with NOACA for the 22-23 school year. And that concludes my superintendent reports.
Motion for approval for superintendent's reports, items 1 through 7.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford? Yes. Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mr. Ritz?
Yes.
Mrs. White?
Yes. Okay, items for information, e-movie news.
Okay. I only have one item to comment on, since I was not at the last board meeting at the movie because of my illness. I'd like to commend Mr. Michael Stroll as being appointed as their new principal effective August 1st. He had previously, in one of his positions, served as the AD up at Perkins. And I got to meet him at this last board meeting, and he is a very highly qualified person. And I think it's one that will work very closely with us. So I'd like to really commend him on that.
This is what can I add on there?
Absolutely.
So we have 3 different sessions for senior recognition. As you know, students that attend EOB, they graduate from Norwalk High School. All the students graduate from their home school. So it's recognition that's happening Friday. We actually have one of our students is the speaker for the 3rd session. So typically it's been at the State Theater. It's been done in the morning and afternoon session. Because it's being done at EOB campus, they had, with their numbers, had to make it into 3 sessions. So it's awesome that Miss Gatchett is going to be the speaker in the 3rd session. So we are going to make sure we have good representation there, because it's nice when you have, of all the schools that EOB serves, that we're having a trucker serving that capacity.
Legislative update. Now, I went to board leadership a few weeks ago, and I always sit in when the legal team talks about state house and current bills. So I'm just going to go over them quickly, and then Joyce, I know you're on top of the House bills pretty well, because I don't know if they've changed. But currently, at least at that meeting, there's over 100 bills pending. That's what's going on. There's still the redistricting and elections. There's 4 different maps, and they come down to the 3rd one. They're actually meeting on the 28th with federal court has a pending case due to the August 2nd primary election. So I have no idea where that's at. If that third mapping is what they're going to approve on, I have no idea. I don't know if you've heard anything new.
I think, yeah, it's fine.
So
I'm
again,
not too sure. No.
okay. And then I believe they gave us 3 names for the state school board superintendent, and I believe they hired one. Is it Hook?
They have,
Is it Hook?
no.
Dakin, okay, because I had Dakin, Hook, and Hoschler, and I couldn't remember who it was. House Bill 126, formerly House Bill 343, and House Bill 75 was signed and passed back in April. It's regarding school districts' ability to challenge property values, commercial, agricultural, residential, and I know.
Yeah, that was not a good one. But
Yeah.
that was not good for schools.
Right,
Or
right.
any other
So my question
taxes.
is, on that, how much of an impact will it have on our district?
We normally don't challenge residential.
We did commercial.
We have done commercial, we did the old Giant Eagle property, Walmart was a challenge years and years ago. So there's some issues there, it basically limits any school district. The problem with that is it really doesn't impact the school district per se, it impacts the rest of the taxpayers. Because if a property is not valued correctly and they're not paying what they should, the rest of the taxpayers, property taxpayers will pay more to make up the difference. So that's really who it hurts is, and if it's commercial, it hurts other commercial businesses, and if it's residential, it hurts other residential businesses because levies bring in a certain amount of money, whether if it's a current expense type levy, it still is based on a number. If it's like we have emergency operating levies, they bring in a certain dollar amount, so it always brings in that certain dollar amount. So if one person is paying less, somebody else is paying more. So school districts would challenge it, not so much for the revenue for the school district, but for the fact that it needs to be fairly addressed. And if everybody just pays their fair share, then it's much better than somebody paying more than they should and somebody else not paying what they should. And it usually is commercial properties that have a lot of resources to be able to challenge it and take it to the Board of Tax Appeals. You know, whereas your regular local business doesn't really have the resources to be able to do that. And the same with residential. It's not usually your regular person that can do it. It's the person who has a lot more resources to challenge.
And I have in my notes that this has been 4 decades fighting the numbers on the restrictions. That this is just something that's been ongoing.
It's been there. There was a legislature brought in, thinking like Harrisburg area that's been pushing this for a while, different ways.
And then there's House Bill 583, extends substitute through June of 2024.
That sounds like it's moving through. It turned into a bit of an omnibus type thing,
I knew
with
you would know.
substitute and.
House Bill 95, National School Lunch Program.
Right, that one's been passed. There was the state appropriations on it.
House Bill 497.
This is state name.
Eliminates the retention provision of the 3rd grade reading test to 1 time per year versus 2 times per year on reading assessment. I don't know if anybody's heard anything new on that.
I think that's one that's been rolled into.
Tied to the new one.
Yeah.
The legislation for reading dyslexia, which will be.
Oh, okay, so they, okay. I mean, because they rattle off and I write down as fast as I can, because they go through a lot of them. Senate Bill 306 volunteering program, to extend it through, all the way through 2024 and 2025 school years, providing tutoring from retired teachers, substitute teachers, and other qualified that may be amended with House Bill 583. House Bill 606, seizure disorder, so training some staff. House Bill 616, I have looked this up, so I look it up. So House Bill 616, I don't know if you're familiar with that one. But,
How about the number?
okay. House Bill 327, 12th version on that bill. House Bill 529, schools that participate in College Credit Plus. I have also on here in capital letters to look up. So about uploading student instructional items, it's a burden on our district. House Bill 582, term limits to school board members. from 4 years to 2 years with no more than 4 2-year terms, so with a maximum of 8 years, which it takes you more than 2 years to really understand the position. So I hope that doesn't go anywhere. House Bill 290 backpack scholarship program.
Hopefully that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's not. Because they say it, to ask your treasurer, it takes $10 to $11 billion to run a district. And most vouchers are done through state legislators. House Bill 99 and I think Senate Bill 168 kind of go together regarding firearms and having armed staff. I know it passed in the House. House Bill 599, all right, 99. Senate Bill, I can't read my writing. It's 2 something, but about cameras being on the school buses, not on the inside, because I believe we already have those, but on the outside for violations of vehicles. So people that go through when the stop sign things out, do illegal things. In August, just to remind everybody, that is the School Bus Safety Awareness Month. House Bill 298, 2024 and 2026 election revised state board of education. But something about phasing it out, 19 members, and then having 11 elected, so I don't know where that's at. And then Senate Bill 178, to reintroduce to House Bill 512, I guess to take all the departments of education that they have and have it as Department of Learning and Achievement. And House Bill 110 is in session. There's many dates that funding would be withheld, non-compliant, but there's several dates that they have scheduled, and they stated that that's headed in the lame duck. So that's pretty much what they had spoke on as a board leadership.
The other one they're looking with the continuation of local decision on who could be substitute teachers. You know, school districts, some lower the bar to high school or graduate, and so they're looking to do that potentially as well. So that's being discussed, right?
Yeah.
And you knew that would be the case because nobody can land positions. So when you have nobody, what can you do other than say, well, give local boards a decision to say, you set the standard for who you're going to hire. So not necessarily thrilled by our teaching populace, but that's the reality of today.
Okay, and any other legislative?
I think they covered them.
Okay, I did, I took notes, but, so board discussion, rescind all OSBA board policies and replace with board policies provided by Puffle and Wagner. We have new policies that have been introduced to us, and we haven't had a whole lot of time, that's why we didn't have it on for approval. And I would like to have our board work together to move forward to work on board policies as well as the new policies from Puffle Wagner, if we could set up some work session. I don't know if it's possible, since we have a board meeting now with this one being pushed in 2 weeks roughly. If we can meet 2 times before our next board meeting to kind of, and then are we able to have hard copies? Because right now I know it's all digital.
Would those be public sessions or?
Yes, public sessions without public participation.
It would just be a work session,
Yeah.
a special session, it's just a work session.
Yeah.
Kind of like you do with the OFCC where, maybe somebody presents.
People can come, but we're gonna be reading things and discussing to make sure that we're all understanding things, since we new superintendent, 2 new board members, and our veteran is 11 years, 12 years? I'm trying to remember how many years you've been in there.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're fairly,
You are
so,
the oldest board members.
well, I'm talking about.
I know.
I knew that was coming.
So if there's dates that we can, and then is it something that, because I guess I gotta look at you 2, because you've been through some health scares.
You say no.
That is probably not, is it doable to have it at the board office, or is it better for you to come in where you don't have steps?
Doesn't matter to me. I'm ready to them. It's up to him.
Well, then we would have to check the calendar then too, for here.
And the other thing I would like to know, Mrs. Wick, would be, do you want the author, Dan Lauer, to be a part of this, or we can zoom him in when needed? Obviously, there's an expense there,
Let's
so.
have one first, because then if we accumulate some
Right.
questions, instead of pinging them and we don't have questions
He's-
after that.
He's driving from Cincinnati,
Yeah.
so we're like, he's on the
So-
clock. We know that part, but he's willing to do that, or we can do a call, so.
So
I
let's,
mean, we're changing the policies because they'll be easier to manage through this company. Is my understanding of why this was introduced to the board, right? I know we joked on the phone last night that you didn't think that we should go through each one, but I want to stress the importance of, the nerd wants to stress the importance of policies. I know that you guys think I'm, crazy, but I'm fine with doing my part, but these are what we're gonna lean on anytime something hard happens, anytime we have to make a hard decision. These are what support those decisions. And it doesn't matter how little or big it is. I mean, this is the foundation to not just the school board, but to anything, any company, anything. So this is the groundwork. I don't feel comfortable making a quick decision on changing just all policies. I quickly got the link, and before my meeting, I was just scooting through, or just going through them, and found a couple that absolutely would not be approved in a normal setting. So, I mean, what if we would have missed that? It was in the miscellaneous section. It makes me a little nervous. As you see, I have the board policies. This is just the board section. Think about how many policies. I know Joyce probably, I don't even want to look at Joyce's section of the financial policies, but I think that we're gonna have to split them up, just make sure we know what we're putting in place, because those are what we're gonna turn to if we need to.
So with the change, for some of you to know, it is gonna be, if you do a hard copy, it's gonna look far less because it is far less. So state and federal law is not a part of that. So that's what's pulled from that, because if that's established law, the line is that schools everywhere are following that, because you have to follow law. So that stuff has been removed. So two things that we'll have to do is what's established law that we know, here's why that's not in there. And then the specific stuff to what is connected to Norwalk, what this board wants and what they don't want, because it's specific to their decisions. And there's a part of that too. So there's two things: separate the state and federal law that doesn't need to be there, and what do we want, what don't we want, relative to, we have decisions on a lot of it. Other things we don't.
right, just to have everybody on the same page, and if there are questions, so we can talk about it.
So how many work sessions are talking?
I'd like to have at least 2 before the 14th.
Can you do the 14th for next week?
Yeah.
I think we should try and do that, because
Okay.
14th.
Well, it's because this one pushed, I know,
I'm
that's
working
why
9
I'm
to 10
like,
o'clock every night.
so we'll start with that then, so move the 14th regular scheduled board meeting to the 21st.
I'll put back, well.
We're going to 21st.
21st, push it,
Yeah, get some room in there to have a work session.
What time frame were you thinking for these, just so I know? I have, I think there's safety calls that week.
Well, no, I mean, we're gonna move our regular schedule.
Oh,
board
board
meeting
meeting.
for June.
Okay.
From the 14th to the
Okay,
21st.
That's fine.
So is that okay then?
Yep. Still at 7 p.m.
At 7, yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, do we want to stick with Tuesdays, or does any evening work?
Something. My wife.
I mean-
Tuesdays, whatever.
I mean, does it have to be an evening? Can anybody do early morning, but I know.
Yeah. I personally prefer to do evenings if
Okay.
you can. If
So, I
you
mean-
can't, then early morning I prefer.
I'm good for like
Library.
6, 7 o'clock.
Okay, so the library for these,
That's in the
the
evening.
school will be out,
Evening.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not, no.
Okay,
My only dates that do not work are 7 and 8. That
Okay.
entire stretch.
okay, okay.
So work sessions in the library.
Yeah, so we'll have the work sessions in the library, since school will be out. So would, June 6th on a Monday evening work for one of them, and then,
June 6th.
yeah, so can we just do them both on Monday, so the 6th and the 13th?
6 and 13, what time?
We have negotiations on the 13th,
Oh, okay.
and we're hoping to be done, and it may be a marathon session.
Okay.
Date sounded familiar.
Well then, well, I mean, or,
Might go to like 9 o'clock, you know.
yeah, so,
fine,
yeah,
right?
so how about, can we do the 14th then, for the?
6 and the 14th?
Yeah, so 6 and 14, 7 o'clock, just keep it simple, same times,
What time
7, get the same as 4.
are you fine with 7?
I should be good.
Long as it doesn't rain.
So maybe when we get out there for rain.
No.
That's what I was
It
like,
puts-
wait,
it puts him behind. So June 6th and June 14th, okay? And then is it possible, I don't know how big it is. I'd be fine sharing, sitting next to somebody looking at the policies. We don't have to each have one unless everybody wants one.
Is there a way we can identify, so they're giving us all just the law, correct? They're giving us nothing extra, they're giving us just law, or they're giving us law and some popular others?
The law's been eliminated. So he's
No,
also,
it hasn't. It's there.
so Dan has gone to both Joyce and myself on specific things that we've had to name. So I'm not sure if all your parts and pieces are in, but there are names, and I think we talked here at our pre-board agenda meeting, of names and titles that are positions where it's listed, where it's who's gonna be responsible for. We have who's responsible for the pesticides in our district. That has to be a named person in position. So we've submitted that. That part has not come back. So when we said we're gonna push policy, I'm perfectly fine with that. It makes sense because we're not ready. We didn't get those things back. There are other little caveats within it that need to be defined by us that we haven't had our voice. So that's why this makes sense to do this.
And then also, I know I brought it up with some, to have a discussion for an SRO, especially with what happened today. I know a lot of people haven't heard the news from Texas. I'd like to be proactive and be prepared on situations and that, and I think our funds through the ESSER, Joyce is looking into it, to see if we can possibly make that happen.
I know there is a grant.
But I think did that pass or already gone? That passed?
I don't really, and I know
So
there's been different
We'll
things.
look into more of it to have it on the.
Or the police chief has in his desk a application for that grant, because the police chief applies.
Okay.
So we need to do some talking there.
Could we spend some of this time on financial planning and add that to part of it? I don't know how long this will take, and I don't want to get too crazy, but I mean, if we're gonna have work sessions, we can add some of the financial planning to it. I mean, I personally that was a scary thing I read. I probably read it 10 minutes before I walked in.
Right.
I mean, that was 2nd through 4th grade,
Yeah, 7 to 9 year olds.
14 children in that age range. So, yeah, I think that we have financial planning, we have money we need to look at. I know, I threw at Joyce too once when we were talking about things, one of the things that Norwalk didn't have was after school programs, things where other districts around us do have, and it's a very attractive thing. And sometimes when you have 2 working households, that's a decision making of what district you land in.
And there is a new,
So that was something else.
there is a new program through the state police. And I know Joyce is familiar with it. There's money set aside for that reason too.
So that would be also development too for Norwalk. What are we offering to help bring people in? So that was one of my financial planning ideas.
So plan on coming with your sleeves rolled up.
Casual
wear.
So we do want several hard copies then,
At least.
so we can see the volume of what that does. what
That,
kind of
I mean, I know, any of the policies with schools or any.
Sharon brought in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Sharon was carrying those around for a while, those big binders. Finally had to put them away for the
But the new
binders.
one's supposed to be less than that, right? So, but, I mean, at least 2 hard copies for us to, if we need to highlight.
I only
take
printed
those
these,
out,
but
so.
I think we need to break it down to our electronic, there's sections. I mean, there's the
Oh, I know,
boards, so then
I
there's.
just skimmed it.
I was like, wow, it's a lot to consider. I know that sections might be more important to you, it might be more important to the teachers, and I know it's important to me on the board side, but I just want to make sure we don't get rid of something that we've used in the past to make.
And we'll have to have our homework done, because if we come in that night, we're
That's
doing a
right.
first read, then we will not have enough time.
That's right.
Right.
Why are you
Yeah,
looking at
so
me?
look at it. Oh, so yes, be sure to study, you don't have to read word for word, but know at least what we're talking about, yes. So, okay, so the 6th and the 14th at 7 in the library, and the new,
Can I ask, how much did it cost us to switch from the OSBA to this law dependent on these policies? If it was just a round figure?
I feel like that we have been quoted around.
5 to 7 is the initial, so that's the policy manual itself, the model manual they have, and then you're basically paying for time in addition. So your upfront cost is your most. Once you get to that, it's only as things come out, that's updated to all the districts they serve, and then it's only those small pieces of parts. Some, it doesn't have local decision. Others say local decision, it'll come to you and say, what do you want? You want this, you want that, you don't, like those parts. And then it's basically you're paying hourly at that point. So
It's a little bit over 7 bucks.
So 5 to 7 was the range that was given for that. And so area where Mrs. Devine worked, Clyde used them, and obviously the figure has gone up over time, but that's the initial, that's your most expensive, because once you have it established, you're not spending more than, you're basically dividing that hourly time by the number of districts they serve.
anything else?
So all these meetings are open to the public, right?
Yes, but there's no public participation.
Right, no action taken.
Right.
They can
For
come
us.
listen though.
Yeah, they can come listen.
That's
In the
good.
newspaper.
They know it's policy.
We're getting to know here already.
My question is to address her concerns.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
I would like briefed on that, why,
Yep, this is the first ever event.
yeah, I'm not
So we will be coming to you.
too happy.
I mean, I'll freely talk if you want me to talk. We talked a day or 2 days prior to, and the concern was addressed that her child was going to be performing in the concert. That's when it came to me, because, and all the teachers left here, but the person we're referencing, Carol Mason's got a heart of gold. Like, as far as that individual, she's not into limiting, isolating, having anybody not be a part of this. She made a mistake, and and she did it twice. And there's nothing more that I can say about that. Like, she did it twice, and I said, and we had a good conversation, and when we talked, it was, yeah, my daughter's gonna be there. And that's as time has gone through the years, when some students, they're coming from other districts, the expectation is they're not always performing in the concert. We have individuals that are not Norwalk students. They would not come back to a concert per se. And we talked that some individuals, we have varying abilities, and that some choose to, but we need to make it clear to our admin team that everybody is welcome to be there. So the point said here, yeah, spot on. And the individual we're talking about, because I mean, I understand how it played out here, but to disparage Carol Mason, every individual here knows what she is, and she has a heart of gold. And she would, she is one of the top of bringing people in and making them feel that this is home and this is family. That did not play out in this case. So
I don't think it's disparaging to ask questions. I mean, so I guess too, on her point, this happened twice in this year, is what I gathered by what she said. Is this something that happened before a parent found out and complained? Is it something that we had where North County students weren't being involved until now? Was that how things were being done before it was brought up?
And I don't know if that's operational at a principal level. We've had principals there that to even say, have I been a part of when students participate? I can speak to being a high school principal. We have individuals, and I don't want to get into individuals because we're live streaming here. We're talking about real people.
Right.
But when I do talk, some individuals, like her child, would want to be with every student. Other individuals, they're with a teacher and they are in the back of the room. So why is a kid in the back room? Yes, that would sound, less than great. Why are they sitting in the back room? Well, some are with an adult that has the ability to, I feel claustrophobic when I'm around kids. So every individual, and she knows, every individual has their own story, has their own case. So it's not as systematic, or the school did it, that we shut anybody out. It's I never, with all my years as high school principal, got into, were these kids asked, were they not asked? Because I am, as she knows, dances, prom, homecoming. We've been open for everybody to participate in that. So I don't think anyone's here is looking to shut anybody out. How it played out here, yeah, a lot of sorry, and this will not happen. That's the bottom line. But Carol Mason is a solid individual, you know that.
Oh, yeah. We're blessed that she's.
And I don't think it's so much the direct, that it was something with Carol Mason and just, I would like it to be addressed for all teachers to be aware that all kids, if they're in a class participating in a class every single day, why it should even be a discussion of you're called out in class. Nope, you're not part of the concert. That should not even be a discussion. That should not even be a discussion.
Maybe I just took it differently. I didn't take it as a personal attack towards one teacher. I think she was I took it as bringing awareness to, we have some separation in the schools with there's separation. If there's sometimes a lack of communication with separation, so if parents aren't even aware of the concert to make that choice for their child, we don't have to talk about specific children to talk about a broad aspect of choice, where those parents are aware of the concert, they know they're invited, they can make that decision if their child is appropriate to go to it or not. I think that made a point. She also did make a point about the room that they're used in the school, which I made a note on too. And I again don't think that's by us asking. We're not pointing out one person or one school. I think that's a valid thing to ask.
That's common sense. That is just
Like if there's a better solution to that, I think it's bringing awareness. Maybe.
I used to teach in that room down there.
And so now you're asking kind of beyond where my range is, because I can speak generally to this and what my experience in high school.
Right.
Now you're kind of stepping into an area that
So
I'm
what I'm
room
saying,
assignments here.
well,
so.
you offered to talk right now. So what I'm saying is, I think that what Pete Jeremy says is we want follow-up on it, because I think that it does bring up points of where we're trying to improve things. And, I do have a child on an IEP, and it is a difficult thing for a child to maneuver in a school when they are on an IEP, because they feel different. They do, and then as they get older, that gets worse. We have amazing IEP teachers, and Ms. King is amazing, and they do a lot to try to make that not feel so different. So I think that anything that when we get a parent that comes to us and says, hey, can we do this better, we should definitely listen and put our listening ears on and see what we can do better. So I do appreciate you bringing that to our attention. And I don't find that you were picking out one teacher at all. So I appreciate that.
Any other discussion? No?
Just one comment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I can speak for Ralph or not, but, as you know, Ralph and I have both been under the weather. And I just wanted to thank, this board and our school administration for the support and everything that, just shown for both of us. I mean, we really appreciate it, all of you guys. And I want the public to know this board is coming together. We are one group now, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
So we're gonna have these discussions to make us better.
Well, that might divide us again. I'm gonna kid out there.
Motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Norris?
Yep.
Mrs. Blair?
Yes.
Time frame. Hour and when you get the hour, or you see that.
Oh, yeah, right. Hey, listen, I don't